The information expressed in the following podcast is intended for educational purposes only and was created by and belongs solely to Believe Limited and the Flow podcast and does not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Please speak to your healthcare provider before making any medical decisions.
Hello and welcome to Flow. I'm Jessica. I'm here with Sarah Watson, sex therapist, and today we have the great and powerful Amy Board in the house from Bloodstream Media. We love all their shows. And we're going to talk about a poll we conducted with a group of women in the bleeding disorders community. But first, we all want to know, how's your flow? Welcome once again to Flow. We start off Flow with a quick check-in to normalize the reality of menstruation. So here we go. Sarah, how's your flow?
Hey, hi. I think I'm in my luteal phase, feeling extra spicy today. So we'll see what happens. Yay.
Yes, we like spicy.
Yeah. How about
We
you?
like spicy.
I know. Spicy Sarah is a fun time.
The best time. I am definitely very close to ovulating.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right.
Watch out, world.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
All right.
Here it comes.
I just finished
Ovulating or menstruating?
menstruating,
Okay.
but still have the IUD situation, so it was fairly mild this go, but felt like the heat rising all over my body with the hormones, Yeah,
Do
all
y'all
the
get night
things.
sweats?
Yes.
I do. I get big time night
Me
sweats.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Change the sheets.
It's disgusting.
Wild.
Change the shit.
It's nuts.
Like, you can't wear
Or, like, I
those
wake up
pajamas twice. No.
Can't wear those.
Yeah. Now I have reduced what I sleep in, and I like to be cozy, and now it's almost naked.
I mean, yeah, it feels like a Bikram yoga class has ended, but I'm opening my eyes. Doing some good work in my sleep is what I'm trying to get at.
Get it.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, today on Flow, we're going to talk about podiatry. Just kidding. We're going to talk about extreme menstruation, but first we're going to take a quick break.
This ad is brought to you by Von Vendi, Von Willebrand Factor Recombinant.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I didn't always feel empowered to speak up for myself or ask for the care and support I needed. Becoming part of a community and hearing other people's experiences helped to change my perspective. That's why my deciding factor is making my voice heard. To hear my story and access other helpful resources, drop by Von Vendi, that's VONVENDI.com/patient-stories.
We are back on Flow. What a beautiful day with Amy Board here flowing with us.
Yay.
Amy, we want to know more about how your flow brought you to helping create Flow. We have this poll we conducted with an amazing group of women in the bleeding disorders community. You have a connection to women in the bleeding disorders community. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I am not personally affected with a bleeding disorder. Hello, flowers out there.
Yay.
I know you've heard my voice before a little bit, but I'm so happy to be back. I was connected through a family friend back in the day, 2003. So I have been in the bleeding disorder community for several decades. Was a camp person, ran the Colorado chapter of the National Hemophilia Foundation for about 7 years, and then came here to Believe. So that's how I am kind of involved in the community.
And here at Believe, you are, of course, one of the hosts of one of my favorite morning shows. Bloodstream.
Yes. If you are in the bleeding disorder community, you should listen to the Bloodstream podcast. It's a hoot.
It's a delight.
We
love it. Yeah.
And it's the titular program from Bloodstream Media, which
Yeah.
is an organization that does wonderful work in rare disease, podcasting, educational, infotainment style. Get your data, get your info from Bloodstream.
Love it.
So if this is for all of us to check in before we geek out on the poll, what made us want to geek out on menstruation, or what drew you to want to talk about, specifically in the bleeding disorders community, but also in general, the draw to focus on menstrual health? What brought you here?
I'll start because I'm the guest.
Go for it. Go for it, Amy. Please tell us.
No, I think what was so intriguing about this show in particular, and Sarah, feel free to have your thoughts on some of this, but I feel like women in the bleeding disorder community were talked at just like the men in the bleeding disorder community. So we had the same lingo, we had the same type of discussions about treatment and symptoms and all of those things. It was, real, I don't know, kind of tertiary in terms of the education. And no one just talked about menstrual cycles, about periods. And women who are affected by a bleeding disorder have other symptoms other than their menstrual cycles, I will say. So we shouldn't negate some of those other symptoms. But where women experience monthly bleeding, obviously, it just doesn't get talked about in, I don't know, any type of way that breaks the barrier where it's not shame-filled, it's not embarrassing. And, menstrual cycles, as a whole, we don't talk about it. That's why we created this show, so we can talk about, full tilt, talk about it. When we first started the show, I mentioned way back in the day with Jay Rich how impactful this was for me and my mother. Really, we don't talk about it. Just in my relationship, in my friendships, we don't talk about it. I become a different person when I menstruate. We all know this. We talked about the rage or whatever you get, and we don't talk about it. So that was my kind of passion about this project. I really wanted women in the community in particular with extreme menstrual cycles to have a place where we just talk about it without any shame. And we can really dive deep into that. And I think for this community, it's just a space where we can facilitate conversation.
Yes. Oh, following that. Lovely. I love it.
Sarah.
I would absolutely piggyback on everything that you said, Amy. But I remember being at hemophilia summer camp, and one of the girls in my cabin, and I believe I was 11 or 12, and she got her first period. And remembering, I was like, what is happening? What's going on with this particular cabin mate? And these are new, I did not know this person. She was new to me, and thinking she wasn't doing anything and she was in a lot of pain, but we weren't really, no one was being like, this is what's going on, right? When we should have been taken to the health center in this, because we had a health center at that time, and most hemophilia camps do. And she'd been like, hey girls, this is what's going on. Your fellow cabin mate is bleeding excessively and it's really painful. Don't be scared about it. She's okay, but this is what's going on. But no one talked about it. And then throughout my time, right, in years of going to camp, we never talked about it there, and was definitely not talked about. And we pride ourselves on this education that we offer our community, right? But this is a giant missing piece. And it wasn't at these meetings either. I would go to these national meetings, and we just started. I mean, I feel like it's just, but maybe, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but really having hey, here's a track for women to figure out and go get this information. But even in that track, no one's talking about it. We just started talking about sex. And we're not talking about menstruation either. So I like to dive into the things that are really important, which is menstruation, intimacy, and pleasure, because that those are some of the core things that everyone is experiencing in some way or another. Even if you're not a menstruator, you know someone who menstruates. So why are we not talking about periods? And so to have the opportunity to talk about both of those things for our community and the community at large, our amazing listeners, I mean, could anything be better?
Well, and so you kind of mentioned this, but what has changed? Because you have now been in the bleeding disorders community with the desire to communicate more, and we're now going into year 4 of Flow. Yeah. What has changed in conversation around menstrual realities?
I think that it's happening. Right? It's kind of, we are doing this on our platform. I think there's, and Amy, you'll probably have to speak to this because I haven't been to a meeting in a little bit, but an annual big national meeting, I should say. We're finally getting some tracks. Like we're getting this women's track and like how to do this, but I still think that there is some hesitation. But there's a white paper that just came out, and we can talk more about that in just a minute. But like it's focused on women, so I'm really interested. I have not read it. Full disclosure, have not read it. But with I believe the hype is and the hope of that paper is to really have focus for women, and what we need to do. So I think that's a huge change, but it's also it's just the slow motion of it makes me kind of ragey.
Yeah.
The slow motion of the change that is happening. So it is happening.
It's happening.
Yes.
Slowly.
I think the biggest hurdle right now, and community, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the biggest hurdle is in our clinician space.
Yeah.
I think having women with bleeding disorders being taken seriously, having their symptoms being taken seriously in terms of treatment options is a huge barrier that I think we're all trying to deal with. How to advocate for yourself in that room, how to be believed in that room. I cannot begin to tell you how many friends of mine in the Colorado community, women, had suspected bleeding issues and were told that that wasn't the case. These bleeds were in joints. A lot of them weren't even, period related, maybe because they didn't even think that their period was abnormal because, their entire family line bled that way. So is it normal? Is it not? But I think women in general have a harder time being believed in a doctor's office.
Yes.
But here in the community, we are really fighting that battle. I think women with von Willebrand's disease have been fighting this battle for a while. And now women who have been designated as hemophilia carriers, now we're starting to be tested, obviously, for their levels, and they're at a mild hemophilia level. They should not be called carriers. They have mild hemophilia. So if they have mild hemophilia, you should be treated like a mild hemophiliac. And that is not happening consistently.
Why?
Because there is this, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
there is this clinical mindset that women do not have hemophilia.
Yep.
They are carriers of the gene. Sometimes they're symptomatic,
Yeah.
but their levels show, and it's science, it's numbers.
It's literally
So if they
numbers.
have
Like
mild
it's math.
hemophilia, then that means they should be treated as such, and the standard of care in the world and the globe, if you have mild hemophilia as a man, you should have clotting factor on hand at any given time of day or night. So you have some in your fridge.
Yep.
You might not have to infuse, regularly like a severe or moderate man with hemophilia, but you should have some on hand. And getting that prescribed and getting that covered by insurance companies is a nightmare.
A complete
for women
nightmare.
who have mild hemophilia. Women who have mild hemophilia bleed once a month. Men who have mild hemophilia don't. We have no treatment options or treatment procedure about periods of women with mild hemophilia.
Yep.
There is a contingent, if that's a word, I don't know, of people, of clinicians, of advocates who are rising to the occasion for this. It's getting larger and larger and larger, but as Sarah said, it's a small little train. Hats off to the physicians who are leading the charge on this. There is peer-reviewed medical papers on this. This is a growing advocacy concern for our community. It warms my heart that the older generation of men with hemophilia are actually becoming more and more vocal and involved in this. They have seen the gaps and the disparity of care. And that generation, our HIV-tainted blood history generation, is like, oh, we should use our might of, they're being true allies in this and really, kind of, I wouldn't say leading the fight, but man, they are a huge vocal advocate of this, which I really appreciate. But this is something that will continue for the next, 5-10 years in terms of changing how we clinically, relate to our women, especially with mild hemophilia.
100%.
So I'm hearing that there's both the learned silence of women not speaking up for what's happening or knowing that it's not normal to have certain symptomatic experiences.
Yes.
And then I'm hearing that there's like a flat earther situation going on in the science community of like, no, that's just not true.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the data is like, that is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That sounds like a mental health challenge more than a
It is
medical.
insane.
It's pretty nuts.
Well, I would say
It's
even
nuts.
for
we talk about not calling things crazy, but that's nuts.
I did not have Factor in my fridge until I was 35 years old, and that was because I was pregnant.
It's insane.
That you were then allowed to get Factor.
Yeah, that it was like, hey, Sarah, you should have this at home for your treatment. And I think I've shared before I went through multiple treatment centers to get my diagnosis. Even though the multiple freaking number is right there, right? It's right here. Hey, you're between 18 and 25. Like this is the amount of Factor that you have. And mild, by the way, is anything under 50. So
is anything under 50.
Well, and there's also this being mild but bleeding like a severe that came up in this poll conducting this group of women we conducted the poll with. That many bleed like a spicy, bleed like a severe. So just because the data says mild, good, that means a diagnosis, but your treatment's actually needed for symptoms that seem like the numbers are lying. Seem like there's more treatment needed.
Yes. And this is something that I'm not an expert on, but I do just think it's like interesting that if you have numbers in the mild range and you are a woman, you are a person who menstruates, what does that mean for your menstrual cycle?
Right.
Maybe you don't bleed like a severe into your joints all the time. Not say some 100% they do, but like, what does that do to your menstrual cycle? That should be taken into account.
Right.
And, we use hormone therapy, I think, for extreme menstrual cycles, extreme periods. And is there another way of treatment that won't interact with our female hormone system? It just seems to me like, Factor is a replacement therapy.
Right.
It's not, dealing with, it's not curbing symptoms. It's literally a replacement therapy.
Right.
Feels like a duh. And I know it's expensive. It's expensive to the system. I understand that.
Yes.
But like, we're worth it.
We're the ones who bring other people to the earth. I mean, come on.
I mean, if men can do it,
we can do it. It can't be that hard.
It can do it getting Factor treatment. If they can get the Factor treatment, then you can do it too.
And they do,
Yes.
If you are a man and you have mild hemophilia, if you have the levels that Sarah has, you have Factor in your fridge.
Yep.
If you have a car accident.
Yep.
If you play basketball and you get a knee bleed.
Yep.
Sarah, do you have any memories as a child or as a teenager, as a young woman, where you're like, I bet that was a knee bleed or I bet that was a joint bleed?
Oh, 1,000%. So I can list off several right now. Broke my nose when I was in 3rd grade. I was trying to be cool, y'all, and I fell straight off of the monkey bars to the dirt. And kabam, should have been treated immediately.
Queen.
Bruising everywhere. I believe that, and this is just my understanding of self, but I had so many bloody noses in elementary school that I would be sent. So I would start bleeding in class and they're like, go to the bathroom. I was in the bathroom forever. And so much time was lost in the classroom that it impacted my learning. 100%, where I was not getting all of the information and no one was like, hey, we should do something about this.
Oh, Sarah.
Yeah. That was almost all of my element. I don't think my bloody noses really stopped until like early 20s. So absolutely 100%.
100%.
And I wouldn't have bled had I had
so
treatment, right? Like it wouldn't have been, or it wouldn't have been as long, right? I wouldn't have missed so much school. I wouldn't have.
You wouldn't have missed school.
Right. No. Mm-mm.
And then your wonderful knowledge could continue to expand at even a higher level, and you give back so much of that knowledge in the pleasure, intimacy, and whatnot departments. So then why is it taking so long to get the treatment accessible? Why is it moving so slowly? If we know the earth is not flat, why is it taking so long to tell people that women need Factor?
I don't know if I'm smart enough to answer that.
I don't know if I am either.
I think, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I think women in general have a hard time being believed in the doctor's office. Yeah. We could go back to all of the things, hysteria and all of the things. I've witnessed it. I was a part of our clinical HTC hemophilia treatment center system as a program person for years before I went over to our nonprofit, and I witnessed it around the table with really good people. It was just not something that people believed, and the women and the mothers who were very vocal and about advocating were deemed as problems.
Of course.
And so they went somewhere else. They had to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yeah.
And I just think it's a mindset change, and I don't understand clinically what the deal is. Sarah, maybe you do from a systems perspective, but
I think what comes to mind is when it's a mindset. It's also how are we educating these future hematologists? Right? Like
call.
They get about 12 seconds, right? A paragraph or two, maybe in med school about hemophilia. But I was literally just sitting with a physician who is in his residency this past weekend at a hemophilia event, and was like, when we were just chit-chatting, getting to know everybody. And he's like, so how are you affiliated? Because I was not from this particular region. And he's like, so I shared my relationship and then shared my diagnosis. And he's like, what, you have mild hemophilia? And I was like, yes, I sure do. And then we went on to have a longer discussion about why that is. And so this person coming from, he is going to be a physician, but couldn't, and has a bleeding disorder himself, couldn't wrap it around right away that, that makes sense. Until I was like, well, my factor level, ranges between 18 and 25. This is what I've experienced. Yeah. And he was so sweet. Like, don't get me, he was so sweet. But this is someone who's fresh out of med school, right? He's in his residency. It was not long ago. So I think it's how we are educating providers, and then the continuing education and these organizations and these meetings that we have, specifically MASAC, we were speaking about these tracks where these meetings where these physicians go and have this amazing meeting and learn all about things, but they are not hearing from the consumer or their patients, right? They are just talking to each other. And I think that's part of the problem.
I do too. And I don't think, so MASAC is it's the Medical Advisory, Scientific Medical Advisory Board of the National Bleeding Disorders Foundation.
Okay. Medical, yeah. The AC piece.
It's something, it's something cooler than that.
Medical and Scientific Advisory Council.
There we go.
Great.
Guaranteed. There was a listener that was like, Amy, you butchered that. It's great.
It's okay. There's a lot of
It's great. It's fine. It's fine.
It's totally cool.
I also, they issue quote unquote recommendations of how we treat things in terms of building standard of care. In the medical community, standard of care is a very important thing. And so they are trying to change that standard of care for mild hemophilia in women and people who menstruate. So that is a thing. If you go to FAIR, their organization, which is the grassroots organization for women who have bleeding disorders, you can sign on actually to several MASAC recommendations. Like, this is a recommendation that we should, propel a little bit for. We agree with this, so that's something we can put in the program notes.
Yes.
That is all good. They've come out with several recommendations about women with von Willebrand's disease in terms of treatment. All of that stuff is very helpful, but truly, women, this is a advocacy fight with you and your physician on a monthly basis when you go in there. So, I think that organization, the FAIR organization, has a lot of resources on their website that can help you go in and feel very prepared at your appointment. This is something that I think is fascinating. A physician, and I don't know if y'all told me this or somebody else told me this, or Jeanette did on the last episode, but I thought this was fascinating. There was a physician that recommended women who have taken their son's clotting factor to treat their own bleeding, which happens all the time. So if you are a mother and you have a child who has hemophilia, I can't begin to tell you, this has been like since the dawn of time. Women have taken their son's clotting factor and just did a dose when they have obviously had a knee bleed and couldn't get treatment or something. This physician says, document every single time you have done that and go into your doctor. That is a very counterintuitive thing. You would think that you would not want to mention that to the doctor.
Right.
But in terms of documenting your bleeding history, that is very important. If you document like your menstrual bleeding, how long, how many pads you go through, and just be document it with a binder. It's a whole lot of extra work, but I don't know, we have to do this to be taken seriously.
Right. I was gonna say typical, right? We have to do 17 hours of homework before a doctor will take us seriously.
I hate it.
Same.
Hate is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Emotion.
Yeah. Sorry, I could go all day about this, and I don't even have a diagnosis, but it's just very pervasive.
Right. I think that I would add in too, remembering every time you walk into that office that you are the expert on your body. Just because there is a doctor in the room with you does not mean they understand your experience. How many physicians out there, I would love to, I'm sure there's a number here, but how many other physicians that you're going to see, how many hematologists actually have hemophilia? And are women with hemophilia? I don't know if there is one. I would love to know if there is. Where are you? Find us, call us, DM us.
We'll look for you, yeah.
Hello, where's she? But you are the expert, not the doctor.
Yes. And find your advocate in the hemophilia treatment center system.
Yes.
So it might be a nurse, it might be a nurse practitioner, it might be the social worker, it might be the PT. Find your advocate and choose your fighter and have those conversations. Also, my mother, who has multiple chronic diseases, bless her heart, she has, over her experience as a woman in the medical system, slowly started to say, every time I go into the physician's office, I'm the one making the decisions.
Yes.
So not necessarily obviously it's a relationship between you and your physician, but I can fire this physician at any time.
Yes.
I am interviewing them. Are you going to be a part of my care team?
Right.
So we don't feel like we have those options in our HTCs because of the specialty. But let's be really creative with how we do that. Maybe you do have some options in some states. You could go to different treatment centers. Maybe you can see somebody else in another state if you can figure that out with your insurance. Maybe, again, choose your fighter. Is the nurse, is the PT, is the social worker someone who's going to take you seriously and advocate for you all the way to the top? Play the system.
Yep.
Enter Mortal Kombat sound effect here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, here's hoping that actually happens, J. Rich.
It will happen, Amy. Don't you worry. Come on.
Great. This is flow.
right.
This is flow.
This is flow. We love those things.
We do. And we do like to talk about extreme things that are also sometimes swept under the rug, which includes extreme dismissal specifically for people with black and brown skin. Why? Because bruising and
Yes.
swelling is it's more difficult to see.
Right.
Do you have experience of, patient stories, including in the group that we polled before this episode? We heard some tales of that. We also heard of some family lore and some myths. So apparently, and sharing this as, the tradition of technology is new in our life, but technology helps us connect with people with different self-prescribed treatment plans. And apparently one family uses warm Jell-O. What? Eating warm Jell-O. Now that, again, cooking it, making it up instead of letting it set, sipping the warm liquid has helped her reduce her menstrual bleeding. It's a self-prescribed treatment plan. I'm just here delivering the message.
But let us know if you try it.
It's not been scientifically backed. I just got to say that too.
Feels like a lot of sugar.
Oh.
Yeah, is it regular
Fair.
Jell-O? Is it sugar-free? What do you do?
But that's got aspartame. That's shit.
Yeah.
Well, but if it stops your bleeding,
No.
a little aspartame to stop the joint
I was about
problem?
to say,
I mean,
to each his own.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I like it.
Well, and I don't know about the joint pain, but specifically menstrually speaking, that's been something that's worked. So
right.
we're gonna
I mean,
do some
hey,
independent study on that.
aspartame for sure over gushing,
Yeah.
inking as we are. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a good octopus. Also this family, not family lore, but this lore that apparently has more offshoots than I knew of redheads having more extreme menstrual cycles. Have you heard this mythology?
I am a redhead. I am a strawberry blonde. And I haven't heard the menstrual cycle thing. I've heard other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard other stuff. Can you speak for all redheads now and tell us if they're true? What have you heard?
I've heard some pain management stuff. I think you guys have stats on that too. I've heard pain management stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that red hair and blue eyes are it's the most rare combination in the world, which I am.
You are the most rare in the world.
special.
Born.
I also heard we could be extinct
What?
in
Yeah.
so many years or something like that. I love that stat. It makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Wait, extinct? Oh, like it'll.
Like no more redhead
Yeah.
blue eyes because
Who's doing the math on that?
I don't know the internet.
Cool.
Somebody in their basement. It's cool.
Somebody in their basement. That's it.
I mean,
What?
very, very scientifically accurate. I'm sure.
Wait, didn't you find a scientific thing about redhead? What was
Yes.
the myth that scientifically?
They need more anesthesia because of their level of pain tolerance.
So I don't have a big pain tolerance.
No, that
Maybe?
you need more. Yes, correct. You need more.
You have a high.
You need
Okay.
more anesthesia because you have a less pain tolerance.
Oh.
That's what the internet says.
How do we test this?
I don't know. I feel like
I'm sure there's some interesting international game shows that could be created from this premise.
1,000%. Yeah, I like it.
I mean, like all of us, I only know my experience, so I don't know if I have a higher or low pain tolerance.
Yeah. How do you compare that?
I don't know.
No, how does anyone compare it? You have
Yeah.
that old chart of the happy faces going sad for pain.
Yeah,
but
the
how
1
do
to
you
10.
compare if your sad
Yeah.
face is
yeah,
I
your
don't know.
sad face could be my face. Right?
And that is it. That's fair.
Well, let's just say redheads are magical.
Let's just say
I
it.
mean,
It has been said.
it's true.
So mo didn't be known. Well, I do want to mention that in this poll that we conducted, we had an amazing representation of people with different diagnoses and on their way to find a diagnosis. And that is the kind of conversation we on Flow do support. Just talking about it is how to help learn from it. Sharing what you're going through with us is very welcomed. We have a Calendly link. You can schedule some time. If you'd like, we'll help share your story on Flow and help other flowers figure out what's going on with their flow. Anything else to wrap us out today, ladies? Flowers.
You should call us if you're using 2 tampons at a time. You should sign up because that's a little excessive, my friends. Right? Like that's
Have you ever done that?
Thank God, no. That sounds like my own personal nightmare. So I feel for the people that are having to do that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And there's people that we conducted the poll who didn't know that wasn't normal,
Right.
right? Because that was their solution and self-prescribed treatment.
Right.
Wait, so what is the most extreme thing you've ever had to do for your period? Let's go on an outro question. I know that I have conducted making pads out of tissues and toilet paper.
Oh,
I've done some science origami to make a pretty decent substantial.
1,000%.
That's what I've had to do.
Yeah. The toilet paper adventure, 100%. I would say in the opposite fashion is using a tampon that wasn't the appropriate size and how painful that can be because I was a new bleeder. But it was, I think I've shared, but my first adventure into a pool while on my period, and my mother just handed me a super tampon. And I was just a 15-year-old, I think, or maybe even 14. And nope, wasn't needed. And we all know what happens to super tampons when you get in a pool, right?
Yes.
Uncomfortable.
And if you don't know, they just fill up and it's really uncomfortable.
You heard it here first.
Cool.
That and redheads are magical. Do you have any extreme period solution you found? Yeah.
I think this will be shared with everybody. Just figuring out sleep.
Yeah.
How
Yep.
to, how to curb, how to barrier for sleep, and what could be healthy for my body to not use tampons all the time. I found it felt healthier for me to free bleed at night. Now there's all these cool, built-in underwear things that feel much better. But at the time it was a pad situation, and the leakage and the embarrassment, because when you're dating, some of that type of stuff was the biggest thing. And I didn't even have an extreme, bleeding. I had a fairly quote unquote average cycle, but you still those first 2 days are,
awful, right? Usually.
Thumbs up. Yeah.
2 thumbs
Giving
up, 2
the
thumbs
gush.
down. Yeah.
2 thumbs up to the gush.
We've talked about it many times. I don't know when we're going to get with a prototype creator. We want to create a Flow mattress pad situation.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a Flow period mattress pad?
Yep.
Get on it, world. Come on.
Yeah.
That would be
Come
great.
on. Someone reach out. Come on. We want to do it.
Yeah.
Yes. I also have to mention I have someone who wants to give us a story about some amazing period sex. So maybe a future episode coming back to what you do on the bed in all departments, whether you're gushing, sexing, how that works. Let's talk
I would
more
actually love that, because that's something we should normalize, and normalize with your partner. I have a few stories in dating world where I felt just an exorbitant amount of shame, and we should normalize that conversation.
Absolutely normalize it.
Yeah. Sarah Watson.
I am into that story. Let me hear it. That sounds amazing. Please.
Well, then that's what we're going to come back with.
Cool.
Get ready for some period sex stories on Flow. That's it for now. Check out our program notes for how to get in touch with us. Amy Board, thank you so much for flowing with us every month.
This is
behind
just
the
a
scenes.
joy. We should just do this all the time.
Yeah. Love it.
Done. We'll see you next month on Flow. Flow is produced by Bloodstream Media. Big shout out to our creative director, Amy Board, and to our editor, Alex Watson. New episodes will be available the second Thursday of every month.
Hey, that's the day after I start menstruating.